my 28th family planned to skip my wedding because they hate the groom 31M. I went to university as a mature student, started at 22. I took a few years between sixth form and uni because I had a baby Teddy, currently 8M. In my second year of uni, when I was 23-24, I met Ryan, then 27M, who was hired as a lecturer. It was his first year of teaching anywhere, and I hated him at first. He was nervous and overcompensated by acting like a wanker, and I was not impressed. By my third and final year, he eased up a lot and was genuinely nice. The turning point was when Teddy got sent home, and I emailed Ryan to say I'd be missing his lecture. He suggested I bring Teddy with me. He was only 4 at the time and very easily bored, and Ryan spent the lecture alternating between helping us and entertaining Teddy. Edit to be clear, this was about 6 months of him acting like a wanker, and then a year and a bit of him being a genuinely great guy. This whole time, I was having regular phone calls with my parents. They noticed the shift from me ranting about Ryan every chance I got to singing his praises. A few months after I graduated, I ran into Ryan in a coffee shop and invited him to sit with me and Teddy. We talked for a bit and I gave him my number. It was platonic for a few weeks, until he said that he hoped this wasn't too forward, but he'd asked a couple of hypothetical questions at the university, and if I wanted to date, then we would be allowed. I told him it was very forward, so he was lucky he's cute. I didn't tell my parents we were dating until a few months in, which is also when Ryan officially told the university, and about 6 months after my graduation. We've now been together 2 years. We've been the butt of a few jokes, which we've been fine with, but my parents and siblings immediately came down hard on Ryan due to how we met and what I told them about Ryan throughout his first year of teaching. They also seem to think that when I started being nice about him in third year was when things began with us. We've made clear to everyone that he's not really a wanker, how the timeline works, and Ryan has done his best to impress them. They've even grilled Teddy over his feelings on Ryan and tried to feed him answers. I have shut this down, but their feelings towards Ryan remain mostly negative. Ryan proposed at New Year's with Teddy's help. I said yes. We're planning the wedding, and when I asked my mother for help out with a guest list regarding my family, she said not to bother as no one wants to come, including her dad and my siblings. The only person likely to come is my brother 32M, but that's it for my whole extended family, solely because they don't like Ryan. Is there anything that can be done at this stage? Something we can do on our end to get them to come? Is this the point where I should just give up and tell the lot of them to F off? I guess there's 2 issues. Your family's issues with your partner, are they legitimate? I've seen a lot of inappropriate academic relationships. This one doesn't rate on the creepometer. Seriously, so they can really only resent him for being a professor you didn't like. I feel like it's very strange that the resentment outlived yours. What can you do about your wedding? Not much. You can tell your parents that you'd really appreciate them coming because it's a big deal for you, but they presumably already know that. This behavior is pretty weird. Do they just dislike him for the reasons you've described in this post? This is the sort of thing I'd expect. With bigotry or real problems in your relationship, any chance you left out that your family are a bunch of racists and Ryan's not one of their preferred colors, or that whenever you're out together he abuses you or your son and your family is concerned, because those would make this make a lot more sense. Basically, the only way your family's conduct makes sense is if your partner is abusive, controlling, problematic with you or your son, and you're somehow blind to it, which can happen over a long relationship with power dynamics. I would sit down with one or both of your parents, just you and them, and ask them what their problem with Ryan is. Their refusal to attend the wedding is way beyond my daughter is marrying a jerk and I don't like him territory. Ryan is from a different religion and he is a POC, but I truly don't think this is related to that, as they disliked him before they even met him, and he's white passing, so I don't even think they know that he's a POC. Ryan has never been anywhere close to abusive, in front of them or in private. He's so sweet and kind, and it takes a lot to even get him to raise his voice. He's great with Teddy, who even calls him dad without prompting, and he even asked Teddy for his blessing before he proposed to me. They claim that their sole reason for not liking him is that he was my lecturer, and they think the timeline is hazy, despite us resolving the confusion every time it's brought up, and they think he could have altered my grades or something similar before we got together, which isn't possible, and we've explained why that is. He wasn't grading most of my work, and the pieces he did grade were routinely moderated with 3 other markers. If I was you, I wouldn't take my mother's word for it that everyone agrees with her, because people often pretend to agree to avoid an argument. Send the invites out regardless and make people decline themselves. Don't let your mother decline on their behalf. But of course, don't invite your mother because 1, she's already said not to, and 2, then she won't know exactly when the invites are going out and she's less able to sabotage it by calling people and telling them not to go. You live your life. They will either come around or they won't. This exactly. My mom is a huge conspiracy theorist and thinks everyone she talks to agrees with her. That's because no one wants to argue with crazy, so they make non-committal noises and go, oh, really? Whenever she brings it up, whenever she's challenged on any of her beliefs, she just says, well, everyone else I've talked to thinks it makes sense. I would imagine OP's mom means everyone the same way my mom means everyone. No one wants to argue with her, so they just agree to keep the peace. My mom is similar. She's played the poor beleaguered mom with a disrespectful daughter to everyone in the family, but everyone secretly sees what's going on. Unlike your mom, my mom just comes on really strong. She had those whale eyes when she's on a tirade and no one's going to interrupt her or make disagreement noises. She can be really intimidating, so she thinks everyone agrees with her. From your description, it sounds like Ryan was what we would call where I live, a teacher's assistant, not a professor. Do your parents understand the difference? Maybe that clarity would help them understand, or maybe not. All I know is that there is more to why they don't like him, because after a few years of dating and his consistency and treatment of you and your son, most families would come around. Usually, in situations like this, it could be fear of hurting you or leaving you, but it's clear he is serious. So, I wouldn't stress anymore or try and get them to come around. Invite your brother and you can tell all the rest that you would like them to be there for you, but if they aren't going to be supportive, then you can't force them, and that whether they like it or not, Ryan will be part of your family. I would talk to your family again very seriously. Lots of people don't like their in-laws, but if you want a relationship with that family member, you have to grit your teeth and be supportive. It sounds like the issue here is that they believe this relationship either started inappropriately, maybe abusive in some way. Maybe they think he nudged you. From what you've said, there wasn't much difference in years or maturity level, and although it isn't awesome for lecturers to date ex-students, you did at least both meet as adults, and frankly, given that you were in mid-20s age single parent, I'd be willing to bet you were more mature than Ryan when you met her, as mature as he was. Anyway, going back to the talk with your family, you need to make it clear that if they skip your wedding, they will be massively hurting your feelings and creating a serious rift in your future relationship with them. Okay, so this is super weird, but I was just listening to a podcast called Girls Gotta Eat I Hate My Best Friend's Boyfriend. One of the hosts, Raina, talked about how her and her BFF met some guy and had bad vibes. They talk shit on him. The BFF would mention some stories on things he'd do to Raina, and of course her opinion would keep going to a strong dislike to the guy. Cue the BFF and bad dude dating and are now serious. Obviously Raina dislikes him because of her interactions and her BFF's other bad stories. I think this is what's happening with you. Your family has been influenced by your opinions on him in the beginning, so of course are questioning him now being a good guy. I think maybe just sit them down and talk more in depth with them on why your opinion changed on him. Ultimately, it is up to them to change their minds in the long run. I wish you all the best in hoping they see he isn't what you thought in the first place. How badly did you speak of this guy to your family in that first year? Sometimes, first impressions are hard to forget, and your family may be acting out of a protective instinct. All of this seems a bit odd, though. If you love and trust him, why isn't that enough? Have a wedding that is primarily attended by Ryan's family or elope. The last thing you want to do is make Ryan uncomfortable at his own wedding or bring a lot of negative energy down on your big day. I would communicate to your family that if they cannot accept Ryan, then they would not be seeing you or Teddy either. Ultimately, it is your life, but it would be nice to understand why they hold this grudge for something that happened 2 years ago. Why do they continue to hold these feelings about him? Not going to a wedding is a serious thing, especially for all of your immediate family not to go. I just think there must be more to it. Are they very traditional? Has Ryan demonstrated abusive habits? He isn't even remotely close to abusive. They think that while he was my lecturer, he may have done something to manipulate me, or that he had more control over my grades than he actually did, or something similar. They also hold the things I said about him when he was being a wanker against him. They are traditional, and they were somewhat offended that Ryan didn't ask for their blessing before proposing, but he asked Teddy, and that's good enough for me, and I don't see that being such a grievous affront that the entire family boycott the wedding. Ryan sounds like a great guy to me and Teddy loves him, so I am wondering what your family find to dislike about him. I have known families who have resented the fact that a relation who is a single parent has found a loving partner. It's not about the man, it seems to be about the woman branching out into a relationship that is private from the family. She will henceforth turn to him instead of her parents and siblings, and they resent it. Does that make sense? So it may be that your family wouldn't take to any man you wanted to marry. Just a thought. In all the families I have known where this has been the case, in time the families have mellowed and come to tolerate or even love the woman's partner. Their excuse has been that they didn't know the new man and wanted their female relation and her children to be safe. This doesn't solve your wedding problem, but you may find that once it's done and dusted they will slowly come round. So I'd bite my tongue and arrange the wedding without them, and wouldn't make a fuss, shrug and say okay then, and have a lovely wedding with just the guests who really do support you. There's nothing to scratch your head over. They don't approve because he used to be your teacher. They probably believe he used his position of power to win you over, which in their eyes is wrong. First impressions are a lot more important than people may think. You introduced him as a teacher, you checked notes, constantly ranted about negatively, but then suddenly shifted and started singing his praises. This would be a major red flag to anyone, especially a parent. Again, you may not think this as you're the one in this current situation, but look at it from an outside perspective. If you had a friend that was complaining about a teacher then suddenly complimenting them constantly, you'd be a little concerned too. Where's the sudden shift come from? Why? How? Look, there is nothing you can do. You dug your hole by introducing him as an asshole to everyone. I've made this mistake too. Told my parents about someone who treated me badly and then we became quite fond of each other. Naturally, my parents still have their inhibitions about this person because it's their job to protect me from the bad in the world. That first impression is something they will never shake, and it looks like your parents aren't willing to try and shake it. You can't really do much about it, honestly. Try to think how you'd feel if it was your son telling you for months about how horrible and terrible a teacher was to him and what an absolute asshole who wasn't forgiving over a missed assignment thanks to a child being sick, etc. And then one day he just out of the blue starts saying how fantastic and amazing that person is and we're dating now. It's like a best friend who constantly tears down their BF to you, and then when they get back together just expects you to love the guy again. He might have done whatever to get back into her good graces, but you still only really know the shit things he did that cemented himself as the bad guy. My entire family didn't go to my twin 22F's wedding with her husband 32M last year. My family was very against the whole thing. I told her myself that he was a bad idea because of their quick engagement, engaged after 6 months of dating. The fact that he had been married before and had a child, and he seemed to only want to replace his ex-wife with my twin. They got married anyways. He got her pregnant, and then he started physically abusing her once she had his child. She is divorcing him in a few weeks. Safe to say my family was all correct in our initial opinions of him. For this, I would say talk to your family about why they don't like him, and really listen. Please don't end up like my sister. One commenter said to move forward with inviting extended family but not your parents, as they won't know when the invites are going out. If your mother is talking out of turn about your entire family, then the RSVPs you receive will reflect that, and I agree. It's really painful when family isn't supportive of us, but your family is in the wrong here, and I don't think it should be on you and your fiancé to bridge the gap since you've already explained repeatedly about the reality of the situation. You've already done what you can do to try and fix this, but they aren't receptive, and I agree with everyone else. The reasoning they are giving you is ridiculous. If it's not race, religion, it's something else, or they are really just that petty and immature. If you were able to move past your fiancé's shortcomings and actually get to know the man he really is and fall in love with him, it's not unreasonable to expect your family to at least accept you saying, hey, I was wrong about this guy. Let's give him a chance. They don't have to love him, but just flat out refusing to attend your wedding or acknowledge your relationship because you used to not like him is crazy. Don't invite those who have already verbally told you number, and quite frankly, if my parents refused to come to my wedding for no legitimate reason, I'd be going low or no contact with them, which would extend to your son, their grandson. If they can't support you now, they don't get to pick and choose when to be involved and be loving family members and to whom. If they really want to miss their daughter's wedding day and a great deal of her life and their grandchildren's life, that's on them. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing for more videos.